This particular group of watercolors on a 300-pound rough, the 300-pound rough we talked about before, but this is the Arches 300-pound rough, which is an individual made in individual sheets, one at a time, as opposed in a mold. So it's a mold-made paper, and consequently it has 4 decal edges. The other important thing about it is how it receives the watercolor is different than the 140. The 140 is a little tighter and not as absorbent. But when I want I want a fresco feeling, that is a softer feeling in the paint and the watercolor, but I want it to be play some bright colors interacting with muted colors. But overall feeling, these have a brighter feeling than the original watercolors in this series. Again, these are masks with the soul of the human condition. And this is very important to the story that's inside the painting. I say inside the painting because it doesn't necessarily go out of the painting to everybody. But for me, the important thing is to get that said, but for me to be able to paint it in a way that speaks to myself and my need to interact the colors. The interaction of the colors, the brighter and the more neutral colors is like life, with the interaction of people of all different kinds. It's an important time to see it, also in the light of what's going on today, with the 2 wars going on, especially. Well, the tradition of watercolor painting is the watercolor was a sketch medium, but these are finished paintings. I want them to have a certain finish to them, and they'll be floated in the frame, not matted, because they have the 4 decal edges of the 300-pound paper. I want to also integrate the idea and the colors. It's very important that there's bright spots and there's muted spots in life, and there's bright spots and muted spots in the watercolors. I think at this time, it seems to be important to me to have that 300-pound rough paper, even though it's much more expensive than the 140. The 140 that comes off a roll will only have 2 decal edges. And that would make it so it would have to be matted and not mounted.
Now, these series of paintings, they're still continuing. Do you have a name for the series, or is it just...
It's the soul of watercolor. The soul and watercolor.
Got it. About how long does it take you to finish one? Is there an average?
About a day and a half.
Okay, day and a half.
I let there's a soak in time, especially with the 300-pound paper. I let the colors settle, because when they settle, of course, they change slightly. And if I don't let them settle, I'm playing against a color that's going to change.
Yeah, watercolors do you notice that they shift a lot, or does it depend on the color?
It depends on the color, but also depends on the paper. Remember, the 300-pound paper is sucking it up more.
Oh, really? So the thicker the paper,
the paper, the more like a sponge.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
And when it's a harder surface, or because when it's not a rut, when it's a flat surface, the color stays more on top.
Now, would you say if you wanted to lift paint off of the dried, if it's dried,
it comes off unless it's not a pigment. If it's a dye, then it's just harder to get it all up. But a good pigment, traditional pigment, will go back to the white.
Okay. Do you ever use like a Chinese white or some kind of?
No, some Chinese white would be for the gouache
Got it.
only,
Okay.
but I don't use them at all. You use the white of the paper if I wanted a white. Consequently, I'm celebrating the paper, so that's why it's white all around the
That's
object,
true.
because the paper is such an important part of the process.
Yeah, and it is nice to have it just to show the paper because you can see the texture. You know, when you look up close here, like look at how that texture is really, it's quite prominent, isn't it?
Yeah.
With this series of watercolors. And you can see when you get into like the color, the brightness you're talking about, that intensity of color, but then like having also the, you know, the really nice texture here. All right, so what's next after this? Is that painting done that we're looking at here, or do you
I think it's done. I will know this afternoon after looking at it more.
That's right. That's right. We'll let it set, and then, and here you have pretty even lighting in here. I mean, between the warmth of the lights overhead, but then you also have natural light here.
Right.
That's like going to be giving you like a mix of warm and cool, right?
Right. And that gives me the warm and cool light. And because these are odd lights in the ceiling, they're permanent. You know, there's something.
Oh, are these odd lights up here?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. So you had the bulbs in there are actually.
Odd lights. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So but they have the capo of them, so it's a little different distinction between a regular odd light, like that's in my table.
Right, with the one with the head that adjusts, or the arm, I should say. Yeah. Okay. So the mask, the soul, and the watercolor, is that what we call those?
Yeah.
All right.